Learn everything you need to know about Tennessee's next opponent in our latest Vols Opponent Preview video. We give you the breakdown of what to watch for and what makes each Tennessee opponent dangerous here on Vol Basketball Fever. Welcome in, Vol fans. This is another Vols Opponent Preview video. I'm Nathanael Rutherford here with Vol Basketball Fever, ready for Tennessee's second round matchup in the NCAA Tournament. Seemed to be a really nice response to the first video I did of an opponent preview when Tennessee took on Longwood. So I'm going to continue the series here and keep doing an opponent preview rather than kind of an overall general matchup preview. Thank you all for tuning in again to Vol Basketball Fever here. Please subscribe to the channel while you're here, and please like this video and share it around. Let Vol fans know more about the Michigan Wolverines, who Tennessee will be taking on Saturday at around 5:15 Eastern on CBS. Also, please subscribe to our podcast while you're here, Vol Basketball Fever. We also have Lady Vol Basketball Fever for Lady Vol fans out there, and I just had an episode of that come out just a day ago. So be sure and listen to that and check it out. We're available everywhere podcasts are found and here on the YouTube channel. So please check it out, listen in, and we'll probably do some recaps and some previews for Lady Vols games as well here in the NCAA tournament. Like I said, Tennessee is taking on the Michigan Wolverines. Tennessee absolutely trounced Longwood in their first game, and Michigan came back and won against Colorado State. More on that in just a second. But I want to begin this with an interesting and kind of weird fact. I don't know how many other times this has ever happened in NCAA tournament history, but the Vols are going to go from facing one of the shortest teams in the country in the first round to one of the tallest teams in the country when they take on Michigan. Longwood ranked 343rd in average height on their roster in Division I basketball this year, according to KenPom, and none of their major contributors this year measured over 6'7". However, Michigan ranks 34th in average height, so basically a 300 plus spot difference in average height, and they have some pretty tall players on the Michigan roster. They're led by, and height-wise at least, 7'1" sophomore Hunter Dickinson, 6'11" freshman Musa Diabate, and 6'8" freshman Caleb Houston, all three of which are starters for Michigan. Looking now really to the Michigan Wolverines, unfortunately, Tennessee is winless all time against Michigan in the NCAA tournament, going 0-2 against them, and both those games have come here in the last decade or so. Tennessee losing in the Sweet 16 in 2014, and of course a heartbreaker. This game could potentially start the kind of, the revenge tour for the men's basketball team here for Tennessee, because that game, of course, was the Jarnell Stokes very controversial block charge call that went against Tennessee, and Michigan won that one in a very close game. And then you go back to 2011, and Tennessee lost that game to Michigan as well, and Bruce Pearl's last year, and it was a blowout, wasn't even close. That game was pretty bad for Tennessee, and that was Bruce Pearl's last game as UT's head coach. Rick Barnes is also winless against the Wolverines in the NCAA tournament, as his Texas squad lost to that same 2014 Michigan team in the second round. So they beat Rick Barnes and Texas in the second round, and then went on to beat Tennessee in the Sweet 16 that very next game. Who knew Tennessee and Rick Barnes would eventually be tied together? So that's just a really kind of weird little interesting fact there. This Wolverine squad is coming off a comeback win over Colorado State in the first round, winning 75-63 thanks to a 46-point explosion on offense in the second half. Despite shooting just 4 of 14 from 3 in that game, Michigan managed a solid offensive output, especially in the second half, thanks to connecting on 64.7% of their twos and going 19 of 22 from the free throw line. Hunter Dickinson led the way with 21 points and was joined by Eli Brooks, Frankie Collins, and Caleb Houston in double figures in that game. Michigan isn't known for their defense, really, but they did hold Colorado State to just 27 second half points. And despite State making 34.3% of their threes, they, again, were held to just 27 points in the second half and made just 36.7% of their twos from their shots inside the three-point line and only got to the free throw line 7 times. So Michigan dominated the free throw line, and again, they did a really good job of limiting points in the paint and mid-range jumpers and stuff like that from Colorado State as well. Looking at kind of Michigan as a whole this year, they have alternated wins and losses for basically the last month of play. The Wolverines haven't won consecutive games this season since defeating Penn State 58-57 on the road on February 8th and following that up with an 82-58 thrashing of Purdue at home on February 10th. So they won back-to-back games on February 8th and 10th, but since then, each win they've had has been followed up by a loss the very next game. Michigan is 5-5 in their last 10 games as a result. So they won their game against Colorado State on Thursday, but that was followed up from a loss in the first round, or their first game at least, in the Big Ten tournament against Indiana. So this Michigan team has been very hot and cold. They haven't, again, been able to string together wins. And also to their credit, though, they haven't had a losing streak in a long time either. So they just have been very inconsistent and very up and down lately. And they've been playing some pretty good competition as well in that same stretch. So you may be wondering, why did a 17-14, now 18-14, but why did a 17-14 Michigan team even get into the NCAA tournament in the first place? That's a good question. And actually, I said on Sunday, after Selection Sunday, and kind of all throughout this first half of the week, that I thought that they didn't really deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. So of course they went out and won their first game. So what do I know? But honestly, even with that, I think they were one of the least deserving teams to get in. But again, they proved me wrong and won the first game. But they got in largely, in my opinion, because of the strength of schedule they have. They have one of the toughest strength of schedules in the country. Per KenPom, it ranks 5th in the entire country, and they actually played the toughest offensive schedule of any team in the country. Their adjusted offensive, strength of schedule on KenPom ranks 1st in the entire nation. The Wolverines this season have played 13 games against teams that rank inside the top 40 in offensive efficiency on KenPom, and the Vols will be the 14th time that they faced a team in the top 40, because Tennessee is just inside the top 40 right now in offensive efficiency. All but 9 of Michigan's games this season have been against teams ranked in the top 100 offenses on KenPom in terms of efficiency. So again, they've played some really good offenses this year, which is one reason why their defensive efficiency isn't amazing. It also, that again, plays into the why their strength of schedule is 5th in the nation. Against those top 40 offenses this season, Michigan is just 5-8, with every win coming against a Big Ten team except for their win Thursday against Colorado State. So that win against Colorado State was the first time they beat a top 40 offensive team that wasn't a Big Ten opponent. Defensively, Tennessee is actually going to be the toughest opponent the Wolverines have faced this season, as UT now ranks 2nd on KenPom in defensive efficiency. Michigan has played 8 games up to this weekend against teams ranked in the top 40 defenses on KenPom in efficiency, and they've gone just 2-6 in those games, and they've averaged 68.6 points per games in those contests. So their offense, obviously, when playing toughest defenses, tends to score less, and they're only 2-6 against teams ranked in the top 40 KenPom defensive efficiency. All in all, again, goes back to their really tough strength of the schedule. Michigan has played 18 games against teams ranked inside the top 50, and it'll be 19 when they play Tennessee, and half of those, 9 of those games, have come against teams inside the top 25 on KenPom. This year, though, and against those top 25 teams, Michigan is just 3-6. 3-6 against the top 25 KenPom teams they've faced, beating San Diego State earlier in the year and splitting the matchups with Purdue and Iowa in the Big Ten when they played them twice, beating them once and losing to them once. So again, 3-6 versus the top 25 KenPom teams. I believe heading into the NCAA tournament, they were 5-10 in quad 1 games. So again, losing record and a not super stellar record against some of the elite teams they'd faced. But again, really tough during the schedule. They've played some really, really good teams this year. Michigan's offense ranks in the top 20 in offensive efficiency on KenPom, and it works from the inside out, as they rely very heavily on their post presence and that height they have to drive their point production. As a team, Michigan is shooting 47% overall, which ranks 39th in the country. But that's despite only ranking 185th in the nation in three-point shooting percentage, making just 33.8% of their threes. But again, they work inside out, and a whopping 56.9, so almost 57% of their point total this season has come from made two-pointers. 56.9% of their points have come from twos, which is the 38th highest percentage in the country. So they're one of the top teams when it comes to point reduction from inside the three-point line. Only 25.8% of their points this year have come off threes, which ranks 310th in Division I. For I guess kind of a juxtaposition there, Tennessee is one of the top teams in the country when it comes to point production coming off made threes. And you look at the Tennessee against Longwood, that held true in that one, with Tennessee connecting on a ton of threes in that one. Vescovy, of course, leading the way, going 6 of 8. But Tennessee was 14 of 24 from 3 in that game. And again, a very large portion of their points coming from the three-point line in that one. On offense, the Wolverines also take care of the ball pretty well and have a solid assist to turnover ratio. They average only 11.7 turnovers per game, so less than 12 turnovers a game, and have a 17.3% turnover rate. They average 14.2 assists a game, which ranks 95th in the country. So again, they're pretty good at keeping, taking care of the ball, and pretty good at dishing out assists and making sure that assist to turnover ratio is pretty much always in the positive for them each game. Looking at the other side of the court for them, defensively, they aren't their flashiest and they're not going to really catch your eye a ton, but they aren't awful either. It's not like the biggest discrepancy in offense and defense. They rank just inside the top 80 on KenPom in defensive efficiency, and they do a great job of limiting offensive rebounds to their opponents, holding teams to just a 23.8% offensive rebound rate, which is the 34th lowest in the nation. So they do, again, as you would expect from a team with the size they have, they do a really good job of getting defensive rebounds and limiting offensive boards from opponents. But they aren't as adept at blocking shots as you might expect with all that height. They're not awful, but they just don't have as many blocks and as high of a block rate as you might expect. And their defense rarely forces turnovers, as they have a defensive turnover rate of only 15%, which ranks 336th in the country. So literally one of the lowest turnover rates in the entire country, and opponents are averaging just 10.1 turnovers per game against them. That's really low. Like that is, I don't know that Tennessee's played a team this year that's had that low of a turnovers forced per game. I can double check it, but I don't think they have. They do typically, however, do a good job of not fouling and sending opponents to the free throw line and giving away points that way, as they average just 15.4 fouls per game as a team, and opponents are only attempting 15.2 free throws a game against them. So defensively, they don't force turnovers, but they do a good job of grabbing rebounds, and they don't commit a lot of silly fouls or a lot of shooting fouls either. So it'll be tough to get a lot of kind of free points and some free possessions off of them in this game, most likely. Against Colorado State, Michigan was without their starting point guard, Devontae Jones, due to concussion, but it's looking likely that he'll be back on Saturday to take on Tennessee. The Coastal Carolina transfer is averaging 10.7 points, 4.6 assists, and actually 4.6 rebounds as well for a 6'1 guard, which is pretty impressive, while making almost 34% of his threes and 46.4% of his overall shots. He's been particularly good lately, putting up 16.6 points, 5.8 assists, and 2.6 rebounds over his last 5 games, and is making 40% of his threes from that stretch. So before his concussion happened, and he obviously missed the Colorado State game, he was playing pretty well. He'd scored, I think, 20-plus points in 2 of those 5 games, and again, is putting up some pretty good numbers and shooting 40% from 3 over his last 5 games. So he's back, and that could be, another kind of thing to watch for and see if Michigan's offense is better than it was in the first half against Colorado State, because they came out pretty slow, where they're able to kind of, as the game went on, pick up steam and cut that deficit to just 7 points at halftime and really turned it on in the second half. Michigan has 4 players currently averaging double-figure points this season, with Diabate also averaging 9 points per game. So they have 4 guys at 10 or more points and a 5th one at 9 points per game. And all those guys are their starters. But that also means that Michigan doesn't really have a ton of depth, which has been an issue for them this year. And I think, to me, part of the reason why they have the record they have at just 18-14. They generally go really only about 8 deep, kind of 9, but not really playing a lot of minutes with that 9th person when they're fully healthy. And 8 players did see action against Colorado State on Thursday, but Michigan's bench in that game provided just 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists. And I think 2 of the guys played 9 minutes, 1 played 13. I mean, it wasn't, they didn't play a lot of minutes off the bench and didn't get a whole lot of production from those bench players. So that could be something to watch out for. If Tennessee is able to get Michigan in foul trouble, that could be the biggest difference maker in this game. Tennessee is a lot deeper, and they trust their bench more, I think, than Michigan does right now. So now we come to Hunter Dickinson, who is the biggest, literally, name to know for Michigan, as the 7'1" center was named a consensus second-team All-American this year, and he leads the Wolverines with 18.4 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, and 1.5 blocks per game. All of those lead Michigan in those categories this season. He's totaled 10 double-doubles this season and has dropped 20 or more points in 14 games. In fact, when he's on, Michigan tends to have a lot more success when he's able to get a lot of points on the board. The Wolverines are 9-5 this season when Dickinson goes over 20 points in a game, but they are a very average team, just 8-8 in the games he's played where he fails to score 20 points. So 9-5 when he goes for 20 or more, but 8-8 when he fails to get to 20 points. So that's going to be a huge key is against Dickinson, against Diabate, and against just really Michigan's post players in general. I forget the other name. I'm forgetting there. Caleb Houston, who's also pretty capable of hitting threes too. But can Tennessee's post players really match up with Michigan's post players? Because I think Tennessee has the advantage in guard play. I do think Michigan has a very good point guard in Stevenson, and I think with him being healthy, that's going to add another dynamic to Michigan right now. But I think Tennessee's guard play overall is better than Michigan's. But can Tennessee's post players, can John Fulkerson, can Brendan Huntley Hatfield, can Uroš Plaušvik, can Jonas Adu, can they disrupt things defensively with what Michigan wants to do on offense? Can they get maybe someone in foul trouble? Can they frustrate them? Can you look at what they did against Oscar Tshiebwe this year and get him really frustrated in the 2 games Tennessee won? Even in the game when Kentucky won in Lexington, it wasn't like Tshiebwe had a great game. Can Tennessee frustrate Dickinson, get him flustered to where he's not being efficient? Can they limit what Caleb Houston can do? Can they do things against the forwards, the centers, the big guys on Michigan, and kind of, limit the offense and mess up their rhythm that way? That's going to be the key in this one, because I don't think Michigan's defense is very good. It's not horrible. Tennessee's played a lot better defenses this year than Michigan's and has been able to win games. So I'm not as concerned about Michigan's defense as I am about can Tennessee limit their offensive production. If Tennessee could limit what Auburn did on offense, and Auburn, again, they had 2 really good forwards and 2 really good post players with Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler, then I think Tennessee can in this one. But, Ferguson had a good game. Huntley Hatfield looked pretty good against against Longwood. But again, that was a really short team. This is a much different team. So what's going to happen with those post players? But that'll be it here for my preview of the Michigan Wolverines. Tennessee takes them on in the second round for a chance to go to the Sweet 16 on Saturday at 5:15 Eastern on CBS. Tune in for that. I'm very excited. Please let me know your comments down below of what you think could happen in this game, your predictions, what do you think the keys to the game are. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. Please, if you're a Michigan fan watching this, let me know if I got anything wrong. Let me know if you want to add some more context to anything I said. If you're a Vol fan, which most of you, I'm assuming you're watching this, are, again, please let me know your thoughts below. Would love to hear your feedback. And please subscribe to the channel while you're here and give this video a like and share it with any other Vol fans you may know. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, I'm Nathanael Rutherford, and this has been another Vol Opponent Preview on Vol Basketball Fever.